Are we live? Eating being live streamed. Are we live? Are we live? Looks like we might be live. Could be live. Maybe live. And it looks like we are live. This is Happy Valley Hobbies. These are Mr. Katie. And these are hobbies that make me happy. And thankfully, I was able to find the kit that I wanted to build last week, which I was not able to because I couldn't find it. It was in a spot that it was close to where I keep a lot of stuff and all that, but it was in a drawer that has the more heavier tools that I have. Basically the larger drills, a cross-cutting saw. Well, hello there, Anthony. Wow, I've only been on, let's see, less than a minute ago. So you hopped right on there, Anthony. Thank you for coming. And as I was just saying, I found the kit that I wanted to do last week. So that's one thing we'll be doing. I also wound up, from the same manufacturer, I wound up buying another style kit, which is sort of on the interesting side. The first one is basically a tank car. They started out with flat cars, and then they made a box car version. Now this is a tank car version. The newer kits, on the other hand, are interesting. Is that they are box cars that are only four-wheel. All right, that sounds like an idea. And I started exactly at 228, so that worked out. And then there's Dave BNSF N scale. Hello, Dave. For some odd reason, it showed Anthony first, and then all of a sudden Dave popped up, being earlier. I don't know. Sometimes this chat function is annoying, but yeah, I think I'm about 99.44% over COVID. I'm to the point where I might sneeze or cough, maybe 4 times a day now. So, so, all right, well, I'll switch cameras to the workbench, and now we can show you what I'm up to. These are the 2 cars I'm looking to do. Both are by Congoino models. This is the one I was hoping to do last week, which was a 24-foot wood tank car. So here's all the parts on that. I have 2 of them. And then for the bobber boxcar, as he puts it, I have 4 of them. But what I probably will do is do 1 of each, so I get more, so I can get practice on them, and then it'll be easier to get the ones that are towards the end. Now, the interesting thing is that with the bobber boxcar, is that it uses LaBelle's castings for the bobber caboose. And then I think these are Katie 58s or something for the couplers. And then I'm not quite sure what wheels that Chris is using. Chris, of course, is the owner and designer of Conguino models. But one of the things that I'm going to see about changing, these are actually bobber caboose trucks or underframe. And cabooses had boxes, toolboxes under them, so because things would go wrong and stuff like that. However, on a boxcar, it does not look like the way to go. So I'm going to see about trying to, find a way to, get rid of the boxes. And also this bar across was usually on pictures of four-wheel trucks. There's usually just this up. So one of the things is that probably this and the boxes are probably just gonna go away somehow. Haven't figured that out yet. So we will put that aside for now and just concentrate on the main superstructure. So we'll put the bobbling boxcar aside, and then we'll sort of concentrate right now with the tank car. The kit, as you can see, actually has the tank car detail set, which I get the impression has a lot more. You wind up with a lot of extra parts left over because you don't need them all. Then there's strings and all that for the inner frame. Our bits and pieces of wood. This is the laser cut portion and decals, which because we don't need off the top of the head. This is the I believe that this is the quote wrapper for the wrapper for the tank. This is the core for the tank, and these are the ends of said tank. I think I must have originally looked at them earlier when I first got the kit, because the second kit actually still has this stuff still attached to stuff. And both of them I also got wheels and couplers for them. So the important thing is that reading the instructions on these are very nice to do. Now, here. Well, first things first, take out the frame. Now, most of his cars, Conguino models, they basically start off with a flat car, which they're sort of kind of almost all the same, or at least all the same design. And So you could theoretically get the flat car kit and make, you know, whatever appropriate vehicle you want, or car. Uh, Now let's see. One of the one of the problems with uh, this particular car is trying to find a way to add weight. Now with my layout only being 8 foot long and all that, I'm not really worried about massively long trains and all that. So here, I already have cars that are underweight. Um, so they show that putting the trucks together first. Then, uh, so it looks like we got to this point here. I'm going to leave the nut and bolt washers their original brown. Yeah, it seems to be it's definitely going to be interesting because I never done anything with all the kits I've built so far. Everything has been uh, sort of straight and all that. So this is going to be interesting on how to figure out how to bend this around a corner. Then that's the side sills, and these are the end sills. And start grabbing the glue. Use a very small these are very small cupcake wrappers. Very small cupcakes. I'm saying almost mouse side yeah, mouthful um, uh, basically for very small kid size mouthful cupcakes. And this glue is starting to get very thick. It looks like I might have to go in from the bottom. This is almost empty, so one way to stretch out white glue that I've found, I'm not sure if it's the proper way of doing it, but is to add water. That helps loosen up the loosen the loosen the glue, especially when there's spots that are a little bit more chunky than it should be. It's one of those advantages, disadvantages things. Oh, hello, Gus. Thank you for coming in. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, center beams, I would have to say, is very hard to try to find ways to add weight to them, because they are very thin and don't leave much, not much in options. Probably a little bit better than weld cars, but I should give you enough glue for now. No, I have a whole bunch of applicators here. Where did they go? I thought it was a little bit more prepared than this, but I guess I am not. Not the applicators that I was looking for. But they will work. These are longer than my normal toothpicks, because they are skewers, which apparently are used for olives and stuff like that. But we could use it for here. Actually, seem to be a little bit better. You can see the glue is probably a little bit too chunky. So that means I need to go buy some more. I mean, this is only about that much left in this, so that's one way of doing it. Now, both the sides and the ends are practically, I want to say mirrored, so it doesn't matter which direction that they go into. And with the bobber, I'm not sure, actually not quite sure how that's set up, because it's set up for having trucks. That's why there's sections there for trucks. Let's get rid of some of the glue on this. This is a regular awl that I normally use for making holes. That's what awls do. And sometimes it's not drying as fast as one wants. That's one of the disadvantages of doing live streams, is that can't really wait for glue to dry or paint to dry. Hello, John Barnicki. If I'm saying that right. Yeah, I think having the center of gravity being low is a little bit more important than having the correct weight, because it's, from my observation, it's when something is top heavy, that's what causes most of the problems, not necessarily being too light. But that's and the thing is that they're I think the NMRA standards, they did do, there were people that turned around and spent a lot of time trying to figure out what the correct way of doing things are. I know one person that they're doing as they would put it, Colorado standard gauge, which is 3 foot. And a lot of times they had this one locomotive. It was a really light locomotive and very small, so they had a hard time trying to put weight into it. And he finally got to the point where he was almost there. He actually tried to make it so the locomotive would pull prototypically the amount of cars. So if it was overloaded, it would prototypically, the wheels would start spinning. So he got everything all, it was almost quite there. I guess he was off by one car, and he was still trying to figure out exactly how to make it just a little bit heavier so it could turn around and perform properly. Well, the thing is that the locomotive didn't have suspension on it, and somebody suggested, hey, why don't you make it so it has suspension on it? And the thing is, it did have springs on it, but the springs were so taut that, it was basically, you're not having proper suspension. So he wound up eventually cutting the springs and all that, so it could get to a point. So now it talks about the deckwood stripping, which is this. So let's see. 9.5 foot wide. So get our scale ruler out. And then get out our Northwest chopper, number Northwest chopper 3 to be precise. And we gotta go 9.5. All right. Looks like it's already been set up. Let's go this way. Push this down. And we start chopping. Making sure that this is going to be on the right size. Yep. Alrighty then. This is almost exciting as watching paint dry. All right. So let's say we flip this over. And now we'll start adding planks. Of course, the important thing is not to get glue on the chopper. But I want to say with the showstopper, I'm about I feel like I'm like about 99.44% back to normal. Found out that my supervisor from work has finally left the hospital. He is now home. And also apparently there was a suggestion that he be made a consultant until he fully heals and can come back to work. So, because we're constantly calling him, hey, how do we do this? How do we do that? How do we do this? And because, he's been doing it for decades, so he knows a thing or two. Now, fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, we have been able to keep, even with me being out, the guy that got thrown into the position has been able to keep up. And he's been able to keep up because we've been that slow, that the workplace has been that slow. So it's, that's, so there's, I guess the market for beds right now isn't as high as it has been, both for what we call the consumer portion of it and the medical portion. Sometimes the medical portion is sort of talked about as the, ooh, that's broken on that side. So we'll flip this on that side. But so a lot of people are doing double and triple duty and doing other things, but because of the situation currently in shipping and receiving, nothing is, for a while there, I was getting pulled out, but that's before my supervisor went to the hospital. As soon as he went out of the hospital, as soon as basically went to the hospital and all that, I, been not been taking it away, taking it away from shipping. So I still am there. Instead of wandering to going to different departments because they happen to need somebody, but I am seeing people that I'm out of there where I would normally would see them. It's like, I'm seeing sewers on the glue line, or I see people on the glue line doing the what's called radio frequency welding, which at first I never understood what it was, and then it was a combination of somebody trying to tell me what was going on, and finally turning around and deciding to look up exactly what it was once I found out exactly what the meanings were. And then it's like, oh, it's I understood on how a yeah, I would say that's one of the disadvantages I've seen with the chopper is that the groove underneath the blade is getting deep. I'm not sure if that's a design flaw or a possibly user error. Because maybe, turning around and says, oh, it's not cutting as well. So we turn around and put the blade a little bit deeper. And then, of course, that winds up cutting in more, which then turns around eventually is dulling things. But I think the Chopper 3, I think, was originally more designed for, I mean, this is just my opinion, it was more designed for where you can actually have it set up where it's almost like a production line, because you could either have it was it's advertised of, oh, you can put this over here, where you can have longer pieces, or you can buy extra heads and extra these things and all that, so that can turn around and make it almost like a small little production line of, all right, have one at one length, another one at other length, and then there's also having the third at a different length and a different angle. I know what Chris has done with his box cars. He just basically took the flat car that he had and just built the box on top. I believe he did the same thing with the gondolas. But Congoino Miles also does a bunch of different buildings also. And yeah, different buildings, a couple of different stations. Relatively, everything is that he has. Chris has done with Congo. I want to say 90% of the stuff that he has. The kits are small. I'm actually trying to think which ones are. Most of them are. I want to say they're not. Most of them are not necessarily prototypes. He takes a lot of prototype inspiration, but these are not what you want to call the river counter versions of stuff. A lot of time, most of the things that he has, you will not find a prototype for. However, I know one of his buildings actually has a prototype for it. I forgot, he was driving down through this one Rust Belt town and all that, and he came across this he thought it was a very cute little blue building and all that, and got permission from the owner to make a model of it. That is the only. It's a cute little building. I did not get that specific kit because my layout is very small, and it's very rural, so I do my best not to buy every single thing off that people come out with. I know with new tracks they have a thing where they're doing a diorama for the first time. At first I thought it's like, ooh, that's something I might want to do because that's what I've been doing. But it seems that it's all in HO or in O scale, not HO scale. So, hello, Randall. Thank you for coming in. I'm in the process of making a tank car. There's a lot of times I watch channels and sometimes they turn around and say, well, this is very easy if with a limited number of tools and stuff like that, and then find out that some of the tools that they're using are way expensive. This one, it's like, it had a 5-axis CNC machine, and it's like, I'm like, those are not cheap. it's one of these small little desktop ones that I think it's about the size of this pad and all that, but it's, if I remember correctly, it's still a couple of thousand, if I remember correctly. So or they wind up I think some of the higher end modelers are sort of kind of, I want to say, guilty of this, of, oh, here's this cute little thing and all that they're using and all that, and they're building a diorama and all that. They're using the most expensive stuff that's out there. Which they say, you know, make the stuff realistic and all that, but they do sort of kind of not really show the, you know, how stuff is. I mean, then the thing is that a lot of them are, you know, sometimes you find out that they're sponsored by the scenery makers and all that, or whoever's building the product and all that. So it's one of those things of, oh, this is more of a product review than actually doing something. But you know, it's been a while since I bought these tank cars, so I'm not quite sure how much they are, but I believe the bobber cabooses, or the bobber boxcar. Trying to think now, they're, I want to say $30. I don't have the slip, the, not packing slip, the bill in front of me exactly how much they were. But the interesting thing is with the bobber boxcar, the interesting thing is that they are based off of United States prototypes. Usually when you see a four-wheel vehicle, you're usually thinking it's either European or something else along those lines. It's not an American, but apparently they did, America did have four-wheeled equipment, most famously the bobber caboose, but they also did have the same thing with gondolas, box cars, flat cars. Because sometimes, I mean, there are some industries that didn't need a Ford truck setup, which, I mean, they were not as common as the 8-wheel ones, but they were out there. They seem to be concentrated in the Northeast. I know there's one of the car encyclopedias shows a Delaware Hudson gondola, but it is one of those things of, sometimes it's probably I don't want to say more interesting, but it's finding out exactly who the customers and suppliers were that used these vehicles. So then there could be a more of a, oh, okay, that's why they did it this way. Take for instance ore cars. Rarely were they over, rarely were they over 30 feet, and they were like very, very, very small cars. But the thing is that they're what they were carrying was so heavy. That's why they were that small, so they wouldn't wind up overloading the car. Because if you have it so it's small, it's small enough. That's why it would go that direction. And so for the four-wheel ones, I'm not quite sure if the only thing I could think of is that maybe they were the product they were carrying was relatively light and didn't need a full car. All right, well, thank you for coming, Dave and Scale, and we'll see you around. And yeah, when you're doing N scale, you don't need a larger chopper. You can get away with the original. I did have the chance to get the one that had the self-healing the self-sealing one, but I decided to go with the larger one instead. All right, now that looks like that completes the deck. That's now talk about decking. The angled booster pieces. So this might be done. Now we're going to the bolster pieces, which are thicker. Well, it looks like I might not be getting the bobber boxcar. Time flies when you're having fun, so I must be having fun because I got about 10 more minutes, and then we're on to Anthony's channel. Once I get the bolsters on here, probably gonna wind up ending the stream. One piece of sad news I do have is that there is a a hobby store that's relatively local. That's about an hour away. After a little over 20 years, it's closing. What had happened is that the owner, who was setting up the hobby shop as a place to, basically something to do for retirement, had passed away. And it was actually in his will that the hobby shop would continue. Oh, as I said, I'm only coughing very little now, but and basically the family had decided to see about actually selling the house and the business, because they didn't really, well, they didn't need the house, and the hobby shop was more of a pet project of the owner, not necessarily of the kids. So the plan was to see about selling the business and see if somebody else who wanted the same passion for it to turn around and buy the business. But it looks like they were able to sell the building, but not necessarily the business. This is like the second hobby shop within 2 months that has decided to finally close. So that takes away a reasonable travel distance hobby shop. This glue is a little bit way too thick. But the owner actually wasn't really operating it. He was having he had volunteers running it, and towards the end, because his health got worse and worse and worse, and eventually, well, the ultimate worseness. There, there. So, rumor has it that tomorrow is the last day of its operation. Depending on how I feel, I might wander right after this. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, it was actually there close to when they first opened up. He had a place I was working at happened to have an hour lunch, and I had an hour lunch, and the place was approximately, I want to say maybe 10 minutes away. So it's easy for me to, head up there during lunch and hang out with people and go from there. But I guess that's no longer going to be the case. Hodgepodge of nonsense and tomfoolery. Yeah, I would agree with that. You are not lying. And I would have to admit, at first, since it was European stuff, it's like, doesn't really fit what I'm doing and all that. But eventually, it just got to the point where I don't know. There was just something that felt right, that I kept on coming back, and that's what I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with my channel. It's not going to be for everyone. I was actually expecting to do a lot more puns and all that, but as I've said before, I wound up, after starting the channel, I wound up getting employed, so I could not concentrate on the channel. And it's one of those things I'm still, trying to figure out how things work and etc. But one of the things I'm finding out that doing live streams and all that is a little on the therapeutic side, because there's a bunch of these projects I would have never have gotten done if I wasn't doing it for the quote content. I think that instead of having 3 dioramas, I think I would have only had 1 done by this point. Excuse me, 1 done by this point, and probably not as to the level it is now. There's some things I wouldn't even dare to try, because not being an expert at all at it. But it's like one of those things of, well, let's see if I can duplicate what somebody else had done, and that's pretty much where I guess things wound up going. There it goes. Look like it's quite cut correctly. Oh well. It's underneath, no one's gonna see. But yeah, once I get this last piece in, I'll start thinking on closing stuff down. One thing I want to see about, trying to learn to do is, do the non-live stream stuff to, so I can turn around and do projects without having to wait to do them live. I know somewhere, I think I got the film and stuff for when I built the trestle. I never actually, I built the trestle. I think I filmed on the phone, I think, I'm not sure, but that's going to be sort of like my first experiment of going like, all right, this is what I've done and all that. So all right, we have the basic body for the tank car, and switch cameras. All right, well, see you later, Anthony. Hopefully sooner than better. All right. Camera. There's the camera. All right. So, all right. So we'll see preferably Anthony soon on his channel. Anthony does the Model Train Outsider. And everyone else, and I thank everyone else to show up and popping in. It's one of those things of I think go via after dark, they were talking about channels and all that, and it's one of those things of a lot of times is this okay, they're just numbers. I myself I've found out that there's times that it says, oh, there's one person watching it, and it's like, wait a minute, the chat, there's a lot of people in the chat. So there's something something not right there. And also thank you, John. It's one of those things of how do you make how do you make watching glue dry is entertainment? I think it's more of a thing for my sister, because she is the theater major. She did for a short time. Well, thank you for popping in just to say goodbye. And thank you for adding to the chat and etc. Because a lot of the times it's more, I don't know. I think there's a lot of them that ones where I guess they provide enough entertainment to get enough people on to talking to the yeah. Nope, they are not glued together. Plus, not only that, this is PVA glue or white glue, so it's one of those things of it's not like the ACC glue where you could do that, but no, it's I'd have to say this is more, well, Heath was the one that said, oh, you should start a channel and all that and etc. And at first it was like, well, if I can do it big enough and all that and be able to live off of it, cool, then I wouldn't have to be looking for work because I was unemployed at the time. But it is almost, it's let's see, this is the 45th streams or 43rd stream and all that, so I think about 9 more streams, and I guess that's considered 1 year. But one of the things I am going to see about doing is maybe, because right now I'm using Zoom as the live stream portion of it. Maybe I actually might turn around and actually start looking into different ones like StreamYard, or I'm trying to think what's the OBS. It's like all these other different ones there, and see how to use those. I did use YouTube Live because there was one time that Zoom wasn't working properly. But having options is probably a good thing. The one thing I didn't like about doing YouTube strictly is that wound up losing different abilities on doing some of the things that I could normally do on Zoom. But I would have to say, in closing, the world needs more love. So find your passion, add some silliness to it, and spread it around. Thank you for coming, and see everyone.